And right there, mixed in with ordinary quarters, sat a 2001 New York State quarter that looked exactly like the rest. No shine, no gold glow, no obvious sign it was special. And that's what makes this story so dangerous, because the most valuable coins never scream. They whisper. When the New York State quarter was released in 2001, it was supposed to be a celebration. The first coin of the state quarters program. A bold start. George Washington on the front, the Statue of Liberty on the back, an eagle in flight, 11 stars for the original colonies. Millions were minted. People spent them without a second thought. Arcade machines swallowed them. Parking meters ate them alive. And collectors? Most shrugged and said, common coin. Deep inside the minting process, a small number of these quarters didn't come out the way they were supposed to. Pressure mismatches, die errors, planchet mistakes, alignment problems that only a trained eye, or a very lucky one, would ever notice. These errors slipped through quality control, entered circulation, and disappeared into pockets across America. And that's when the legends began. Collectors were shocked when the first whispers surfaced. A New York quarter that looked wrong. Not damaged. Not worn. Wrong. The kind of wrong that makes professionals stop talking mid-sentence. The kind of wrong that makes auction rooms go silent. One collector reportedly pulled a 2001 New York quarter from everyday change and noticed something unsettling. The strike was off. The design didn't sit where it should. Parts of the coin looked doubled, almost ghost-like, as if the metal had tried to tell two stories at once. Most people would have tossed it aside. Instead, he froze. Because this tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. Under magnification, the coin revealed a dramatic mint error so rare that experts debated it for weeks. A combination of striking anomalies that shouldn't exist together on a modern U.S. quarter. The kind of error that turns a face-value coin into a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. The kind that doesn't just make headlines, it rewrites price guides. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on coins like this. Not because every New York quarter is valuable, far from it, but because the right one can change a life. When rumors of private sales began circulating, the numbers sounded unreal. 6 figures, then more. Then the word everyone dreams of hearing, $1 million. Most of these coins were never pulled aside. They're still out there, in old jars, in forgotten drawers, in glove compartments that haven't been opened in years, sitting quietly, waiting. But what happened next stunned even seasoned professionals. Another example surfaced. Different owner. Same year. Same design. Another shocking error hiding in plain sight. This time, the planchet, the metal disc itself, was wrong. Either struck on the wrong alloy or improperly prepared, giving the coin a weight and texture that didn't match any official records. It passed through machines, through hands, through decades. Untouched, collectors were stunned. Appraisers argued. Authentication teams triple-checked their instruments. And when the final opinion came back, the room changed. Because coins like this don't follow normal rules. They don't need to be old. They don't need to be gold. They just need to be wrong in exactly the right way. And when that happens, value explodes. Not hundreds, not thousands. We're talking life-altering money. $1 million money. One man's pocket change became a $1 million miracle. But here's where the story takes a sharp turn, and where you need to pay attention. Most people think they know what to look for. They check the date. They glance at the mint mark. They shrug and move on. That's how treasures get lost. The most valuable 2001 New York quarters don't announce themselves. They hide in details most eyes glide right over, and weight matters more than people realize. A coin that feels just slightly wrong in the hand can be the difference between spare change and a story worth telling for the rest of your life. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world all over again. That a rumor began circulating, quietly, at first. That one exceptional 2001 New York quarter, preserved in near-perfect condition with a dramatic mint error, was valued privately at close to $1 million. Not because of hype, not because of social media, but because the error was so rare it might never appear again. That's how this market works. When supply drops to nearly zero and demand goes through the roof, logic steps aside. Desire takes over. And collectors with deep pockets don't hesitate. This is why you never rush through your change. This is why dealers say the most dangerous coins are the ones people assume are ordinary. Because somewhere out there, right now, a 2001 New York State quarter is sitting unnoticed, carrying a mistake powerful enough to rewrite someone's future. No fanfare, no spotlight, just quiet potential. And the final truth is almost painful to accept. Most people will never know what they spent. They'll never know what they dropped into a vending machine. They'll never know what they handed to a cashier. And they'll never know they were holding something that collectors would fight over, something that whispers the words $1 million to S.O. tonight. When you open that drawer, when you shake that jar, when loose change spills across the table, slow down. Look again, because history doesn't always look rare. Picture an ordinary day in 2007. Gas prices on the rise, receipts stuffed into pockets, loose change rattling in cup holders. And right there, mixed in with nickels and pennies, a Utah State quarter quietly slipped into circulation from the Denver Mint. No fanfare, no warning, no idea that it was about to become one of the most talked about modern coins in America. Millions were struck, identical at a glance. Another state quarter in a long line of them. But sometimes history hides in plain sight. And sometimes the smallest detail rewrites everything. Because buried inside the 2007 Utah quarter run were mistakes so subtle, so shocking, that seasoned dealers would later stare at them in silence. Coins that should never have left the mint. Coins that broke the rules. And when the first one surfaced, nobody believed it. The story goes that it came from a grocery store register. A man paid for coffee. The cashier scooped change. The quarter felt different. Not heavier, just wrong. He almost spent it again. Almost. Under magnification, the surfaces told a story no one was prepared for. Doubling where doubling should not exist. Dime markers completely out of place. Metal flow that suggested extreme pressure errors. And most jaw-dropping of all, signs that the coin may have been struck on the wrong planchet or with a severely misaligned die, creating details never intended to be seen. Collectors were shocked. Dealers were skeptical. Then the bidding started. Word spread fast, the way it always does when money is involved. Forums lit up. Phone calls were made. Photos were leaked. And suddenly, the 2007 Utah quarter was no longer just pocket change. It was a legend, because another example surfaced. And then another. Each one different. Each one stranger than the last. Some showed dramatic doubling on the year and lettering. Others revealed ghost-like outlines beneath the design, as if two coins were fighting for space on one surface. And one coin, just one, was so extreme that experts argued over it for months. This shouldn't exist, one specialist reportedly said. And when it finally crossed into a private transaction, insiders whispered a number that made jaws drop. A number that sounded impossible for a modern quarter. A number brushing the edge of $1 million. The answer is fear, rarity, and disbelief. Fear, because mint errors like this expose flaws in a system built on precision. Rarity, because no one knows how many escaped, maybe 10, maybe fewer. And disbelief, because Americans are trained to think treasure belongs in the past, not in their pockets. Auction houses began quietly asking questions. Dealers started paying premiums for any 2007 Utah quarter that looked even slightly unusual. Coin rolls were cracked open. Drawers were dumped onto tables. People who had ignored state quarters for years suddenly saw them differently. One man reportedly searched through over 30,000 quarters before finding something that made his hands shake. Another collector swore his example paid off his mortgage. True or not, the frenzy was real. And here's the part most people miss. The Utah quarter design itself is a trap. The mountains, the lines, the dates, the textures hide errors beautifully. Doubling can disappear unless the light hits it just right. Die cracks can masquerade as design elements. And off-metal strikes can be dismissed as damage by the untrained eye. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions. And most people miss it. Collectors now know to look for extreme doubling on In God We Trust. Distortion in the year 2007. Weakness in one area paired with sharpness in another, and abnormal color or weight. A genuine mint error won't look abused. It will look wrong in a way that feels intentional, but isn't. And the mint mark matters. The D is everything to NO. Mint mark versions don't carry the same whispers. Philadelphia coins don't spark the same fear. It's the Denver strikes, rushed, high volume, and imperfect, that fuel the legend. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on these coins, not because every one is valuable, but because one might be. And that's all it takes. Point one coin, point one miracle, point one moment where pocket change turns into destiny. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world one last time. A longtime collector admitted he had spent one of these quarters years earlier, never realizing what it was. He said it still haunts him. Not because of the money, but because treasure was in his hand, and he let it go. That's the real power of this story. Not auctions, not rumors, but the idea that life-changing value doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it whispers to SO before you dismiss that Utah quarter as ordinary. Look again. Check the year. Check the mint mark. Tilt it in the light. Weigh it. Question it. Because history has a habit of hiding where nobody thinks to look. And somewhere out there, in a jar, a drawer, or a pocket, a forgotten coin waits for the moment someone finally sees it for what it is. It looks ordinary. Dull silver. Familiar weight. A Washington quarter you've held 1,000 times without a second thought. In 1995, millions of these quarters poured out of the Denver Mint, jingling into pockets, cash registers, and coffee jars across America. Nothing special, nothing rare, or so everyone believed. But years later, something surfaced that sent a chill through the coin world. Point one collector. Just an everyday guy sorting loose change at his kitchen table. Noticed something that made him stop breathing for a second. The coin felt right, but looked wrong. The date read 1995. The mint mark showed a small D. Yet something about Washington's face didn't match anything he'd ever seen before, but he almost put it back. Almost. And that decision may have changed his life. Because hidden among normal 1995 D Washington quarters is a rumored minting anomaly so extreme, so shocking, that when examples surfaced, veteran dealers reportedly went silent. Not because it was flashy, not because it was shiny, but because it shouldn't exist at all. And when word leaked out, collectors were stunned. The story goes that during a short window at the Denver Mint, a small batch of quarters may have been struck using the wrong die. Possibly a transitional or experimental die never meant for circulation. The strike pressure was off. The alignment was wrong. And microscopic details that should never appear together showed up on the same coin. Most people would never notice, but specialists did. Under magnification, the coin revealed doubling so sharp it looked like the metal itself was trembling. Washington's profile showed extra thickness along the jawline. The letters in Liberty appeared swollen, almost melted, yet razor-sharp. Even the eagle on the reverse carried strange, ghost-like outlines where no outlines should exist. This wasn't damage. This was a mistake born inside the mint. And that's when the rumors started spreading like wildfire. Dealers began quietly asking a single question at coin shows. Have you seen the 1995 D yet? Phones rang late at night. Photos were shared in private groups. And suddenly, a quarter most people ignore became one of the most talked about modern U.S. coins in existence. Some say a specimen was privately sold. Others claim an auction house refused to list one because the bidding would explode. And a few insiders whisper that if a flawless example ever hit the open market, the price would shatter expectations, possibly climbing past $1 million. But here's the part that makes this story almost unbearable. These coins were never pulled from circulation. They were spent. They were dropped into vending machines, left in tip jars, forgotten in glove compartments, which means some of them could still be out there. Right now, as the years passed, more stories emerged. A retiree in the Midwest who found one in a roll from the bank. A mechanic who noticed strange lettering while cleaning grease off his hands. A woman who kept a weird-looking quarter in her jewelry box for decades without knowing why she couldn't bring herself to spend it. Every time one surfaced, the same pattern followed. Authentication attempts, heated debates, offers made quietly, then pulled back. Because the coin wasn't just rare, it challenged what experts thought they knew about mid-1990s minting practices. And that's why this tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. This isn't about scratches or wear. It's not about silver content. It's about a perfect storm of errors happening at exactly the wrong moment. Die doubling, misaligned hubs, strike anomalies so precise they could only occur inside the minting process itself. Collectors weren't just shocked. They were hungry, because modern coins aren't supposed to do this. They're supposed to be predictable, controlled, boring. And yet this quarter broke all the rules. Next, forget the naked eye. This coin hides its secrets in tiny places. Look closely at Washington's profile. The doubling, if present, will look raised, not flat. Mechanical doubling doesn't count. True doubling looks like a shadow made of solid metal. Then study the letters. Especially "In God We Trust" and "Liberty." On the rare version, parts of the lettering appear thick, slightly distorted, yet incredibly sharp at the edges. Blurry letters mean damage. Sharp, doubled edges mean possibility. Flip the coin dot on the reverse. Focus on the eagle. Check the wings, the tips, the tail feathers. Extra lines or outlines that match the design, not random scratches, are critical. Most people never look there. That's why they miss it. And one more thing most people get wrong. Cleaning the coin destroys value. Even gently. Even once. A coin like this must remain exactly as found. Natural wear is acceptable. Artificial shine is a death sentence. Because if you do have one of these, you don't own a quarter, you own a story. A mystery. A once-in-a-lifetime accident that slipped through one of the most advanced mints in the world. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. In 2008, as America faced uncertainty and recession, millions of Arizona state quarters quietly poured out of the U.S. Mint. They jingled in cup holders, disappeared into couch cushions, and paid for gas station coffee. Nobody stopped to look. Nobody imagined that one version of this ordinary quarter would one day be spoken about in the same breath as million-dollar rarities. But that's exactly what happened, because hidden among those everyday coins was a mistake so subtle, so unexpected, that it slipped past inspectors, dealers, and collectors alike. For years, it went unnoticed, until one sharp-eyed collector felt something was wrong. And what happened next stunned the entire coin world. The Arizona State Quarter was meant to honor the Grand Canyon State. The blazing sun, the iconic saguaro cactus, and the banner reading Grand Canyon State. It looked simple, clean, harmless. But beneath that calm design, a silent error was waiting to explode into legend. Collectors were shocked when reports began circulating of a 2008 Arizona quarter with a dramatic die error. A mistake so extreme, it looked almost unreal. Parts of the design appeared distorted. Extra metal seemed to bleed where it didn't belong. In some examples, details were warped as if the coin had been pulled apart and smashed back together. At first, people laughed it off. Just damage, they said. Just another ruined coin. But then professionals took a closer look, and everything changed. Under magnification, experts saw something chillingly rare. A major die break and retained cud. A catastrophic minting failure that should never have left the mint. Even more astonishing, some pieces showed signs of a double strike or severe die deterioration, creating raised, ghost-like shapes that weren't part of the original design. This wasn't damage after the fact. This was born this way. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on this coin once they realized what they were seeing. Because in the world of error coins, severity is everything. The more dramatic the mistake, the more valuable the coin. And this error wasn't subtle. It was loud, violent, and unforgettable. But what truly pushed this Arizona quarter into million-dollar territory was what happened next. One example, pulled from circulation, was authenticated and encapsulated. When it appeared at a private sale, whispers spread fast. Bidding didn't just climb, it exploded. Collectors who had spent decades chasing once-in-a-lifetime coins suddenly found themselves staring at a modern quarter commanding prices usually reserved for legendary gold pieces. The final number shocked everyone. This wasn't pocket change anymore. This was history. Some estimates now claim that if a flawless, extreme error 2008 Arizona quarter with the right characteristics ever reached a major auction again, it could approach or exceed $1 million, especially if it's a one-of-a-kind or tied to a documented mint anomaly. $1 million. From a coin most people wouldn't even bother to pick up off the sidewalk. But here's the part that keeps collectors awake at night. Most of these coins were never identified. They were spent, lost, thrown away. And that's why this story refuses to die. Because unlike ancient coins locked in museums, the 2008 Arizona quarter lived in the wild. It passed through cash registers. It rode in pockets. It sat in jars on kitchen counters across America. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. And he didn't even know what he had at first that he noticed the weight felt strange. The edge looked wrong. The design seemed swollen, almost melted. Instead of ignoring it, he paused. That pause changed his life. When professional graders examined the coin, they confirmed it wasn't just rare, It was extraordinary. The kind of error that happens once in tens of millions of strikes. The kind of mistake that causes emergency shutdowns at the mint when discovered. And yet, this one slipped through. Collectors were shocked. Dealers were silent. Then the phone call started, because everyone knew the same terrifying truth that if one exists, there could be another. And maybe it hasn't been found yet. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. The key isn't just that it's a 2008 Arizona quarter. It's the error itself. Massive raised blobs of metal along the rim. Design elements that look duplicated, stretched, or crushed. A cactus that appears distorted. Lettering that seems to sink or bulge unnaturally. An edge that doesn't look clean or uniform. And most importantly, it must be a genuine mint error, not post-mint damaged. That's where people make costly mistakes. Scratches, hammer marks, heat damage. These destroy value. But true mint errors have smooth metal flow, natural contours, and continuity that only happen during the striking process. This is why professionals insist on authentication. Because when the error is real, the value can be unreal. $1 million unreal. Collectors are still hunting. They search rolls from banks. They dig through old jars. They recheck coins they dismissed years ago. Because the Arizona quarter didn't come with a warning label. It didn't announce itself. It hid. And that's what makes this story so powerful. This isn't about wealth handed down through generations. This is about awareness. About curiosity. About taking a second look when everyone else walks away. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Rumors began circulating of additional undiscovered examples. Nothing confirmed. Nothing proven. Just enough whispers to keep the hunt alive. And as long as the hunt lives, hope lives with it. Because somewhere out there, a 2008 Arizona State quarter with a catastrophic mint error could still be sitting unnoticed, in a drawer, a cup holder, or a forgotten jar of change. So here's what to look for. Check the year, 2008. Check the design, Arizona with the saguaro cactus and rising sun. Examine the rim, raised metal, breaks, blobs, or swelling. Study the details, doubling, distortion, or elements that don't look right. Feel the weight. Anything unusually heavy or uneven matters, and never clean it. Cleaning a coin like this can destroy hundreds of thousands of dollars in value in seconds. Have it authenticated. Because if you find the right one, you're not just holding a quarter, that you're holding a once-in-a-lifetime mistake, that a silent survivor of the U.S. Mint, a forgotten miracle hiding in plain sight. A plain-looking quarter. Dull silver. George Washington on the front. South Carolina on the back. The kind of coin you wouldn't even bother picking up off the sidewalk. And yet, this exact coin has become one of the most whispered about modern treasures in American coin collecting, because the 2000 South Carolina State quarter is hiding a secret that turned ordinary pocket change into a once-in-a-lifetime miracle. It all started quietly. No headlines. No viral videos. Just a collector in the early 2000s who noticed something felt wrong. Or maybe right. A tiny detail that didn't match what it should have been. At first, even dealers brushed it off. It's just another state quarter, they said. Millions were made. Billions circulated. Nothing special. But that collector didn't listen. He sent it in anyway. And when the results came back, the room went silent. Because this quarter wasn't ordinary. It wasn't supposed to exist. What happened next stunned the entire coin world. The year 2000 marked the early days of the state quarters program. America was obsessed. People were hoarding rolls, filling albums, digging through change jars. The U.S. Mint was striking quarters at an unbelievable pace, pushing machines to their limits. And when speed replaces perfection, mistakes happen. Deep inside the Philadelphia Mint, something went wrong. A wrong planchet, a misaligned die, a pressure error so rare that most mint employees never see one in their entire career. The result? A small batch of South Carolina quarters that defied the rules of modern minting. Collectors later discovered examples with dramatic off-metal strikes, missing layers, extreme die clashes, and jaw-dropping double strikes that made the design look warped. Almost melted, because one 2000 South Carolina quarter was discovered struck on a wrong experimental planchet, never intended for circulation. Not a test token. Not a pattern officially released. A mistake that slipped into the wild. And that mistake turned into $1 million talk almost overnight. When photos leaked into collector circles, forums exploded, dealers argued, Grading services debated authenticity. Skeptics called it impossible. Then it was authenticated, and suddenly, the coin no one cared about became the coin everyone wanted. But the story doesn't end there, because the most shocking part is how it was found. Not in a vault, not in an old estate collection, not inherited. It was found in circulation, loose change. A handful of coins dumped onto a kitchen table after a grocery run. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. Collectors were shocked. Dealers were scrambling. Phone lines lit up. Because if one existed, others might too. And here's where the suspense deepens. Most people have no idea what they're looking for. They see a quarter and move on. But hidden in plain sight are details so subtle, so easy to miss, that even seasoned collectors have overlooked them for years. And this tiny detail is why it's worth millions. And most people miss it. Look at the mint mark first. It must have a clear P. Struck at the Philadelphia Mint. No P. Walk away. But the mint mark alone isn't enough. Next, examine the weight. This is where things get serious. A standard clad quarter weighs about 5.67 grams. But the rare error examples don't. Some weigh significantly more, some significantly less. That difference is the fingerprint of a wrong planchet. A mistake that should never leave the mint. Now tilt the coin under light. Some of the most valuable examples show incomplete clad layers or exposed cores that shimmer differently than standard copper. Nickel. Collectors who know freeze when they see this. One example, graded in near-perfect condition despite the error, crossed the auction block quietly. No flashy promotion. Just a listing buried among hundreds of others. Bidding started low, then jumped, then exploded. In minutes, it crossed 6 figures. Then 7. By the time the hammer fell, the final number had people rubbing their eyes in disbelief. Not because it was old, not because it was gold, but because it proved something terrifying and thrilling at the same time. Modern change can still make someone rich. And now dealers are rushing to get their hands on any 2000 P South Carolina quarter that looks even slightly off. Because here's the truth no one tells casual collectors. The rarest coins don't always look dramatic at first glance. Sometimes the difference between face value and $1 million is a fraction of a gram. A barely visible shift in metal. A detail most people never check. And the South Carolina quarter is especially dangerous because millions of people save them without ever inspecting them closely. Drawers, coffee cans, old albums forgotten in closets. If they're still out there. Here's how to protect yourself from missing the find of a lifetime. Not clean the coin. Ever. Cleaning can destroy most of the value instantly. Use a scale. A cheap digital scale can change your life. If the weight is off, stop everything. Inspect the edges. Look for odd coloring, missing layers, or thickness that doesn't match a normal quarter. Look closely at the strike. Blurred details, doubling, or warped designs aren't damage. They're clues. And most importantly, if something feels wrong or right, trust that instinct. Because every legendary discovery started with someone saying, "This looks strange." The South Carolina quarter was supposed to represent history. What it accidentally created was opportunity. A reminder that treasure doesn't always glitter. Sometimes it jingles in your pocket. And somewhere right now, someone is unknowingly spending a coin that collectors would fight over, a coin that could rewrite their future. Imagine reaching into your pocket, feeling loose change, completely unaware that one ordinary-looking quarter could change your life forever. In 2002, millions of Mississippi state quarters were released into circulation. People spent them on coffee, parking meters, and vending machines. No one stopped to stare. No one imagined destiny was hiding in plain sight. But deep inside that release, something went terribly and wonderfully wrong. Collectors would later say this was the moment the coin world blinked and missed it first glance. The 2002 P Mississippi State quarter looks harmless. George Washington on the front, the magnolia blossom, the soaring eagle, and the quiet pride of Mississippi on the back. Just another state quarter, right? That's exactly why the most valuable ones survived unnoticed. Years later, a collector sorting through rolls of quarters felt something strange. The coin didn't look wrong, it felt wrong. The weight, the strike, the details that seemed just a little too sharp, and yet strangely incomplete at the same time. What happened next stunned the entire coin world. Under magnification, the truth began to surface. A rare minting anomaly. A production mistake so extreme, so unlikely, that experts initially refused to believe it escaped the Philadelphia Mint. This wasn't wear. This wasn't damage. This was a mint error, the kind that should never leave the building. Collectors were shocked. Dealers went silent. And then the rumors started. .1 Mississippi quarter, with the right combination of errors, allegedly changed hands privately for a sum that made seasoned numismatists weak in the knees. The phrase $1 million began circulating in hushed conversations at coin shows. Not online hype, not fantasy. Serious money, serious collectors. Most people would have spent this coin without a second thought. Some examples were struck on the wrong planchet. Others showed dramatic double dies, not the obvious kind, but the subtle, dangerous kind that hides until the light hits just right. In rare cases, design elements vanished where they should never disappear, while other details appeared almost ghost-like, floating where metal should not exist. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it, the P mint mark. It seems ordinary, but on certain error examples, its position, shape, or even presence tells a story of mechanical failure inside the mint. A moment when alignment slipped, when pressure misfired, when quality control lost the battle by a fraction of a second. One man's pocket change became a $1 million miracle. He didn't find it in a vault. He didn't inherit it. He pulled it from circulation, from everyday money, and nearly ignored it. The only reason it survived was curiosity. When authentication began, experts reportedly argued, could a modern state quarter really reach $1 million territory? The answer was uncomfortable. Yes, if the error is extreme enough, documented enough, and unique enough. And uniqueness is everything. In the coin world, rarity isn't about age. It's about survival. About mistakes that were never meant to exist. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on Mississippi quarters now. Not because every one is valuable, but because one of them could be life-changing. And here's where the dream becomes real. You don't need special tools to start. You need patience. You need light. And you need to know what to look for. Check the front for doubling in Washington's profile, especially the lettering and date. Flip it over and study the magnolia and eagle. Look for missing lines, distorted shapes, or details that seem to fade in and out. Compare the coin's weight if you can. A wrong planchet can turn ordinary metal into a fortune. Avoid cleaning it. Avoid polishing it. One mistake can destroy value instantly, because the difference between face value and $1 million is often thinner than a human hair. These coins are still out there, still hiding in jars, still sitting in drawers, still passing from hand to hand, completely unnoticed.